Serbia. A country that has been conquered 47 times. Most people picture a place torn by war, but they have no idea what Serbia has truly survived to become as marvelous as it really is. Landlocked and bordered by 8 countries, Serbia sits at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, a place shaped by every empire that ever tried to claim it. The Romans built cities here. The Ottomans ruled for 500 years, and the Austrians drew new borders, separating families and cultures. Each empire believed they understood this place. They were wrong. Serbia defied every conqueror. When the Ottoman Sultan demanded tribute, Serbian princes chose death. When bombs fell on its capital city, people gathered on bridges refusing to leave. This was the heart of Yugoslavia, fractured by sanctions, war, and isolation. And yet, Serbia didn't vanish. It held on through its people. More than 6.6 million people live here today, and nearly 3.5 million visit each year. They come to see the last truly untouched forest in Europe, to stumble upon a hidden lake so clear it feels unreal, to stand beneath one of the largest Orthodox churches on earth. These are the wonders of Serbia. "40 times this city burned, and 40 times it rose again." Belgrade sits where Europe's 2 greatest rivers crash together, the Sava and the Danube. For over 2,000 years, whoever controlled this junction controlled the continent's heart. Soviet-era apartments now tower over Ottoman mosques, and skyscrapers reflect medieval fortress walls. When summer heat settles over the city, half of Belgrade migrates to Ada Ciganlea. This 4-kilometer river peninsula transformed into Europe's largest urban beach, with imported sand, floating restaurants, and tree-lined cycling paths. High above the river junction, Kalemegdan Fortress still guards what everyone wanted to steal. This is where Belgrade began, and where every empire has passed through. Its name means battlefield fortress, and for centuries, that's exactly what it was. Today, it's a public park and historic site where locals gather. From its ramparts, a bronze warrior called the Victor gazes east with a falcon in one hand and a sword at his side, built to celebrate Serbia's hard-won independence. Below the fortress, cobblestone streets lead to St. Michael's Cathedral, where Serbian kings lie buried beneath golden icons. Its gilded spire is visible from the rooftops and all across the Danube. The Temple of Saint Sava rises like a white mountain, its dome stacked in layers and crowned with green copper. It's the largest Orthodox church in the Balkans, designed to rival the great cathedrals of Europe. Still unfinished after decades, this massive church sits exactly where Ottoman rulers once burned the bones of Serbia's patron saint, a final insult that became the foundation for something beautiful. This is what makes Belgrade extraordinary. It's a place where empires came to die, and where people learned to live forever. It's a textbook example of a medieval river fortress, one side defended by cliffs, the other by the Danube itself. At the entrance to the Iron Gates Gorge, Golubac's fortress rises with 10 towers that climb the ridge, while its walls sink directly into the water. From the road along the cliffs, the fortress looks like a barrier across the river, its towers squeezed between stone and water. Built in the 14th century, this was the narrowest point of the Danube, the natural gateway between Central Europe and the Balkans. Whoever held Golubac controlled trade, armies, and the passage between East and West. One legend tells of Golubana, a maiden who defied a Turkish pasha and was chained to a tower until she died. That tower still bears her name, a reminder that even myths found a home inside Golubac's walls. Most mountain villages preserve the past. Druvengrad created its own version of it. It didn't grow slowly over the centuries. It was built deliberately. Filmmaker Emir Kusturica created the village as a set for his film Life is a Miracle. But when the cameras left, the buildings stayed. The village stands on a ridge above Mokra Gora, overlooking the valley and the surrounding peaks. Traditional mountain-style cabins line narrow lanes of stone, with a wooden church at the center. The set became permanent and now stands as a cultural landmark and a living community where festivals are held. This all unfolds in a valley once known mostly for the Shargon 8, a railway that twisted through tunnels and over bridges in the shape of a figure 8. Together, the railway and the village turned a quiet corner of Serbia into a stage where history and imagination run side by side. Once the capital of a republic that barely lasted 2 months, Uzica may look like a quiet valley city, but its past is anything but ordinary. In 1941, it became the center of the short-lived Republic of Uzica, the first liberated territory in Nazi-occupied Europe. Today, the city stretches across a basin in western Serbia, surrounded by steep hills and forested peaks. Red-roofed homes climb the slopes in tiers, where from almost every direction, the mountains close in. The Detinja winds quietly through Uzica, watched over by bridges, balconies, and the ruins of the old fortress above. What remains of the Uzica fortress still clings to a rocky outcrop above the river. Its stone walls are a reminder of medieval power and more recent defiance. On the slopes of Mount Tara, hidden within Tara National Park, lies Zauvina Lake. The shoreline twists and bends in wide curves, with hidden inlets and bays. From above, some even call it the curving mouth of Tara. The water here shifts from turquoise to deep green, so clear that forests and skies reflect across its surface like glass. Though it was created by damming the Bele Rizov River in the 1980s, the lake still feels like part of the landscape. Around it, the highlands of Tara stretch in every direction, framed by pine forests, where rare plants like the Panchich spruce grow. In Zauvina, everything seems to appear twice, once above, and once mirrored in the water below. At first glance, the mountain looks calm, but it built one of Serbia's busiest tourist regions. Zlatibor is both a mountain and a town, spread across a high plateau in western Serbia. Its open hills and dry alpine air have drawn visitors for over a century. In the late 1800s, royal doctors began sending patients here for rest cures, believing the wind itself could heal damaged lungs. What started as a seasonal village with a few wooden villas grew into a full resort town built around nature itself. The mountain behind it rises gradually, with long ridgelines and open meadows. At the town's center is Ribničko Lake, a small artificial basin created for recreation. From there, the Gold Gondola, Serbia's longest cable car, climbs 9 kilometers up to Tornik Mountain, linking the town to its highest ridges. Inside the cabins, the plateau stretches out in layers of pine and pasture, layered like a living map. Then, winter arrives, and snow covers everything. Flat peaks turn white, forests and trees vanish under powder, and the town becomes a stage for winter recreation. Few cities wear Art Nouveau as proudly as Subotica. Located in the province of Vojvodina, the city reflects a blend of Serbian, Hungarian, Croatian, and Jewish cultures. Its centerpiece is the Subotica City Hall. Completed in 1912 by Hungarian architects Marcel Komor and Desu Jakob, it blends Hungarian secessionist style with folk motifs, red brick towers, green ceramic tiles, and copper spires rising over the main square. Below, a public garden softens the structure, and the blue fountain ripples out front. Above it all, a 45-meter tower looks out over the rooftops of Subotica, and beyond them, the open plains of Vojvodina stretch to the horizon. Just beyond the hall, the central square opens wide, lined with cafes, arcades, and colorful facades. It's where Subotica's character comes alive, part old-world charm, part modern-day life, all set beneath the quiet elegance of Art Nouveau. It looks like a medieval fortress built for war, but behind these walls is a monastery built for prayer. Manasseh was founded in the early 15th century by despot Stefan Lazarevich, one of Serbia's most famous warrior rulers. Located near the town of Despotovac, the complex rises above forested hills, its stone walls blending into the landscape of central Serbia. Its church sits behind 11 defensive towers and stone walls nearly 10 meters high. Inside the fortress, the Church of the Holy Trinity still stands, with faded frescoes and cracked stone floors that have survived centuries of conflict. It became the heart of the Rasava school, where the monks of Manasseh copied ancient manuscripts, preserving culture even as empires rose and fell outside the walls. In the small village of Tiche Polia, cottages lean with age, and its fences have warped with time. Surrounded by forested hills and open meadows, it sits near the edge of western Serbia, not far from the Montenegrin border. A narrow road cuts through the mountains to reach the village. Most of the houses are built in the Dinaric mountain style, low and narrow with steep wooden roofs and stone walls. Time moves slowly here. Many have left, but a few still remain, tending gardens, warming stoves, and basking in the peacefulness of this quiet place. They tried to erase it more than once, but Racha Monastery never disappeared. Tucked into the forest near Tara National Park, its red-roofed stone walls have stood since the 1200s, rebuilt after every attack. During Ottoman rule, the monks here became scribes, secretly copying religious texts to preserve the Serbian language and faith. It burned, it rose, and it stayed, a quiet sanctuary that once kept a culture alive. Often called the Serbian Athens for its role in cultural and literary life, Novi Sad was a city born in the shadow of a fortress. When the Habsburgs began building Petrovaradin to guard the Danube, a settlement grew on the opposite bank. By 1694, Novi Sad was founded, a place shaped as much by the river as by the walls that watched over it. That mix of cultures and traditions never faded. In fact, it earned Novi Sad the title of European Capital of Culture, recognition built on its festivals, galleries, and sacred landmarks. At its heart, Freedom Square shows that legacy. The name of Mary Church rises with a spire tiled in color and crowned by a cross. It's the tallest building in the city, visible from every direction. Around it, Baroque facades, Orthodox cathedrals, and Austro-Hungarian buildings reflect the mix of cultures that shaped this place. Conflict scarred it too, and in the 20th century, bombs destroyed its bridges. But each time, the bridges were rebuilt, just as the city itself was rebuilt. On the opposite bank rises the Petrovaradin fortress, the stronghold that gave Novi Sad its beginning. Once called the Gibraltar on the Danube, its massive walls and underground tunnels were built to hold back the Ottomans. In time, they became the backdrop of the city's story. From its ramparts, the city stretches out on one side, while the Danube flows into the iron gates on the other. In the highlands of southwestern Serbia, between Shanica and Nova Varosh, the Uvac Canyon bends in ways rivers aren't expected to. The water loops back on itself in sweeping curves, so precise they feel drawn. As the river searched for the easiest path through karst rock, it curved again and again for millions of years until the meanders became a maze. The true scale comes into focus from above, limestone walls rising more than 100 meters, dropping steep into green water. High on those cliffs, the canyon nearly lost its greatest symbol, the griffin vulture. By the 1990s, they had almost vanished from Serbia until Uvac became their last refuge. The lookouts are not easy to reach, but they reveal everything at once. A canyon shaped by water and stone, guarded by birds that returned from the edge of extinction. Built around 1234 by King Vladislav of the powerful Nemanjic dynasty, Mileševa Monastery was created as a royal foundation and his place of burial. The complex spreads across the valley, with red-roofed buildings and walls that once housed monks and pilgrims. At its center stands the church itself, simple, built in white stone with a single dome rising above it. Its walls are painted with frescoes, including the famous White Angel, a symbol of peace recognized far beyond Serbia. It became a center of faith, holding the relics of Saint Sava, Serbia's most venerated saint. All of it lies in a valley ringed by green hills, giving the monastery the quiet setting it was built for. Tied to every route that cuts through central Serbia, Čačak has long stood at the crossroads of trade and travel. Routes from Belgrade, Ujica, Kraljevo, and Montenegro all meet here, making the town a link between valleys and mountains. The city grew into a regional center, surrounded by farmland and churches that have stood through changing empires. By the 20th century, Čačak became an industrial hub, but that also made it a target. During the 1999 NATO bombings, its factories and silos were destroyed, scars still visible on the city's edge. It feels both old and new, a city marked by history, but still defined by the crossroads that first gave it purpose. They call it the European Sahara, but today, the Deliblato sands look nothing like how it sounds. Long ago, this was a desert of shifting dunes. For centuries, its constant movement threatened villages and farmland, until forests were planted to hold it in place. What remains is a mix of green grasslands and woodland. Now it appears as gentle rolling hills, stretching in every direction. It's a desert transformed, fragile, protected, and still unlike anywhere else in Serbia. It was the last wall standing between Serbia and the Ottoman Empire, but Smederevo wasn't built in triumph. It was built in desperation. By the 1430s, despot Đurađ Branković knew what was coming and raised a fortress from flat riverbank soil with walls thick enough to stall an empire. They stretched across fields like a city of stone, anchored by 25 towers and wedged between the Danube and the Jazava. Inside those walls, politics turned to waiting for reinforcements that never came, waiting for an army that did. When the Ottomans arrived in 1459, the fall was swift, and with it, ended the final Serbian stronghold. A ribbon of emerald water pressed between cliffs and forested slopes, Perućac Lake doesn't look like a reservoir at first glance. Created in 1966 by damming the Drina River, the lake sits at the foot of Tara Mountain. Its waters run deep and still, stretching over 50 kilometers along the border between Serbia and Bosnia. The surface is lined with houseboats and floating cabins, some simple, some hand-built from logs and tin roofs. Most are only reachable by water, tied up to hidden docks and small inlets. A few stand alone in the middle of the lake, like tiny floating homes with no neighbors but the fish below and the mountains above. The coldest inhabited place in the Balkans lies in the Sanjak region of Serbia. This is the Pešter Plateau. Its vast highland of grasslands and rolling ridges stretch for more than 1,200 square kilometers. In summer, the fields spread green and open beneath a wide sky. But in winter, temperatures fall below -30 degrees Celsius, turning the plain into a frozen expanse where survival is often difficult. Sheep still graze across the plateau, watched over by herders who have lived with these conditions for centuries. Scattered across the plain are small, isolated villages, where life continues at a slower pace, shaped by the land's extremes. It's a place where nature tests its limits, yet people still call it home. For centuries, this mountain was mined for silver and lead, but today, it draws people for the snow. Kopanik is Serbia's highest mountain range, home to Kopanik National Park, a protected area since 1981. In winter, it transforms into the country's most popular ski resort. Over 55 kilometers of trails wind through pine forests and down white slopes. At the base of the ridge, the village of Brzeća rests in the valley, its red roofs scattered along the incline. When the snow disappears, the mountain doesn't empty. Summer hikers take to the trails, walking through windswept rock and pine toward viewpoints that stretch all the way to Kosovo. In the village of Gornje Matejevac, a church older than Serbia itself looks down on the Niš Valley. The Church of St. Nicholas is small and simple, a stone rectangle, a brick dome, and a single red door set into its walls. Perched on the edge of a hillside, it was built in the 11th century to serve as a spiritual outpost during Byzantine rule over Serbia. It's one of the oldest surviving churches in the country, predating the Serbian state by nearly 200 years. Over time, it became known as the Latin Church, named for the Dubrovnik merchants who used it when others had fallen silent. It marks the edge of an empire and the beginning of a nation that hadn't yet been born. Officially declared an air spa, Ivanjica is one of the few towns in Serbia where the air itself is protected by law. First founded in 1833 and rebuilt after a fire in 1846, it sits between thick pine forests and fertile valleys. For generations, The town has been known for fruit orchards, hydropower, and handmade wool vests. The Moravica River cuts through its center, crossed by a 19th century stone bridge that still connects the town's oldest streets. Most days begin in the shadow of Muchanj Mountain. Just beyond the rooftops, the towering limestone ridge rises above the town like a natural wall. Its highest point, Klikov Vrh, rises over 1,500 meters, with trails that climb through spruce forests to panoramic cliffs above. From the summit, the view stretches across half of southwestern Serbia, and it's here that many travelers stop to take in the deep, clear breath they can't take anywhere else. They look like a forest of stone, rising out of the slopes of Mount Radon in southern Serbia. Nearly 200 pillars of earth stand here, each capped with a heavy stone that protects it from the rain. Together, they form Javolja Vahrosh, Devil's Town. Myth filled the gaps science couldn't explain. One story says the devil turned wedding guests to stone to stop a brother and sister from marrying. Another says the pillars are devils themselves, frozen mid-dance. Both legends, giving the place its name. It's not the longest or widest river in the Balkans, but few have carved a border this deep. The Drina runs between Serbia and Bosnia, twisting through gorges and mountain valleys for over 300 kilometers. Its banks have long separated east from west, without ever truly dividing the people who live along them. At one bend near the town of Bajina Bašta, a wooden house balances on a rock in the middle of the river. It was first built by a group of young swimmers in the 1960s, who carried each plank and beam by boat, then rebuilt it after every flood. It's even been featured in National Geographic, going viral for its unusual location and endurance. The Banska Stena viewpoint offers one of the most incredible views in Serbia, cliffs dropping straight into the winding river far below. The river is central to Ivo Andric's novel, The Bridge on the Drina, which won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1961. Once surrounded by palace walls nearly 3 meters thick, Gomzagrad still echoes the ambition of a Roman emperor who wanted to be remembered forever. Built at the turn of the 4th century by Emperor Galerius, one of the last rulers of the Roman Empire, it was intended as both a palace and ceremonial mausoleum. The ruins span nearly 7 hectares, a vast field of stone foundations, open courtyards, and scattered columns that once supported grand ceremonial halls. Many of the columns still stand in fragments, thick, weathered, and carved from white and gray stone. Beyond the fortified gates, Galerius and his mother were buried in nearby tumuli, earthen mounds later reshaped into temples. The site was eventually abandoned, buried beneath centuries of soil until archaeologists unearthed it in the 20th century. Now partially restored, Gomzagrad stands as one of the most significant Roman-era sites in Serbia. They call it one of the last untouched forests in Europe. Tara National Park was established in 1981, covering over 220 square kilometers of rugged terrain in western Serbia. It sits on the Tara mountain range, part of the Dinaric Alps, with elevations that shift from low valleys to high forested peaks. The Pončić spruce, discovered in 1875, grows only on these slopes and nowhere else on Earth. This land was once too remote for empires to tame, which is why so much of it remains intact. Rivers cut through the limestone, feeding into still lakes like Zauvine and Peručac, both of which sit partly inside the park's borders. The Drina River forms the western edge and part of the natural boundary with Bosnia and Herzegovina, creating some of the most dramatic landscapes in Serbia. At the Banska Stena viewpoint, the forest suddenly breaks open. A wide wooden platform juts out toward the Drina River far below, twisting between Serbia and Bosnia. From here, the wilderness stretches in every direction, and for a moment, it feels like the world hasn't changed at all.